This is not the Bible Reloaded.
Science is interesting, and if you don't agree, you can fuck off.
And what is the point of the Catholic Church if it says, oh, well, we couldn't know better because nobody else did? Then what are you for?
When someone's arguing with me that the Earth is 5,000 years old, yes, I'm smiling.
So if I offend some of you, I don't mean to offend you personally. I may offend some of your ideas, but that doesn't bother me at all.
I'm ready. Go.
Welcome to the Watchtower and Awakening podcast. You're here with me, Mr. Watchtower. I'll be your host, and we're here again with Bonaventure.
Indeed you are. Welcome.
Hi, Bonaventure.
Hi, Mr. Watchtower.
Happy New Year.
And to you
This
too.
is the very first podcast of the new year.
I've seen you far too much since then. That feels a bit odd.
Yes. You know when you saw me?
I do. New Year's Day.
New Year's Day, yes.
You know what we did on New Year's Day?
What did we do on New Year's Day?
We went to the cinema.
Yes, we did.
We did.
What did we see?
Black Annie. I do it.
We went to go see Annie with the black version of Annie. With
the afro.
Yes.
Yes.
And Michael Fox.
We did. Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox.
And
Jamie
that's
Foxx.
what this podcast's about, right?
What did we go to? What did we go see?
We went to see Exodus. Kings and Gods. Gods and Kings.
Gods and Kings.
Sorry, my apologies.
Yes, we did. Okay, so so this podcast, podcast number 11. We've gone way past double digits. Like your mom.
Yes, we have.
Yes, so we went to watch Exodus.
Yes,
on New Year's Day.
We
a good way to start the new year.
It was a wonderful way. I felt very holy after it.
Did you?
No.
Okay, so this podcast is basically going to be a bit of a review, and we're just going to compare the film to the Bible. Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm going to do for you, listeners, is I'm going to play the trailer. You won't be able to see any of the pictures, but you've probably seen the trailer already, but I just want to give you a bit of an idea of what you're up against. I'm going to press play, and if there's any words, I'll say them, like in my movie voice.
Yes.
When men ruled as gods, one was chosen to change the world. That's not me singing.
That's me singing.
Ramesses, you grew up together, close as brothers. Keep each other safe. Always.
This December.
Something's wrong.
Last December.
Always felt it. Your parents never told you the truth. What truth? The year of your birth, there was a prophecy that our leader would be born to liberate us. That leader is you, Moses. After 400 years of slavery, things here have become much worse. As your brother, you must set them free. Is that a threat? Yes! I want Moses and his family dead. What is the most important thing in your life?
You are. And when will you leave me?
Never. Let's just see who's more effective at killing. You or me. Is it meant to humble me? Because it will not! I came to tell you something is coming that is far beyond you and I. This is about Egypt's survival, do you understand? Who has been telling you this? God. I am a god. I am a god! Follow me and you will be free! We're going to recapture 400,000 slaves. We're not recapturing anyone. There is a sea ahead and an army behind! Ready yourselves!
That was it. That was the trailer. That was a film that went to go and see. Exodus, Gods and Kings. How much did you enjoy it, Bonaventure?
I don't know. I just saw all them beards rolling across the screen, and I just embraced it.
Bonaventure enjoys a beard. What's the word? You know,
Pagonophile.
Pagonophile.
Yeah.
Your kind of film, then, yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoying the beards.
I did.
Well done.
Yes. But other than that, I didn't really watch it. End review.
How did it go for you? The whole story? Were you happy with it?
I found it a little far-fetched.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. It is based on the Bible, though, right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it felt a little far-fetched.
I kind of liked it.
You liked it?
I liked it.
Good. What did you like about it?
I think you said, but what about the film? I liked it because it was a little bit in the same way that that Noah was. It was like sort of based on the biblical story, but it was almost done in like a Greek mythology kind of way.
Yes.
Because it had everything that you expected in it. You know, the really obvious things that that Joe Average would know about. Moses taking the Israelites away from Egypt, being chased by the Pharaoh and his people, parting the Red Sea, getting across it, closing down the sea, and killing everybody. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what everybody knows.
Yes.
But they don't know the finer details.
They don't.
So why not, as a storyteller, Ridley Scott, who made this shit, yeah? The director of Gladiator, and Alien, yeah? Uh-huh. Because he was with Scrawny Beaver again. Roughly translated as Sigourney Weaver.
No, we got that.
No, I wasn't about it being storytelling yet. So, as any good storyteller would do, you embellish a few facts, just like when you watch even things that are being made with people of living memory, like The Theory of Everything. The people that are in that have been interviewed, and they said, yeah, on the broad scope, it is fairly accurate, but some speeches weren't said then and there and things like that. But as a storyteller, you got to mix it up a little bit because real life's a little bit boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what's happened with this.
Yeah.
To be fair, the biblical story isn't necessarily boring, but they've changed slight bits of it. But I kind of liked that because we had the whole story and how impressive it was with like the plagues and things like that.
Yeah.
It looked fairly beautiful.
It did.
I like the way the seas parted and things like that. Yeah. It's worth a watch. I quite enjoyed it.
I didn't dislike it. I just felt that it consistently throughout the whole thing, it mocked the whole story, which I like. I enjoyed that side of it, but it absolutely mocked the whole thing, and I enjoyed that side of it, but I don't know. I just found it a little... I like the way that he described the events as well. Like, the events seemed more real. Like, it wasn't a parting of the sea. It was that the tide was out, but God did it because they all went to sleep. And
it was like a dramatic sort of... like the sea started to disappear. That because as he goes into the sea, it isn't. It
was like it being at Blackpool, wasn't it? When the sea goes out and you can cross to
yeah, it was exactly like that. Yeah. No,
it was though. It felt more real. It felt more believable the way he did it. I think. Now,
a few of the reasons I liked it was it was done in such a way as to be a little bit like. I can't think of another film that does it, but in Fight Club, I'm not going to ruin this for anybody. I don't think. Did we discuss that we'd seen it?
I haven't seen it. This.
I'm going to give it away now. There's two main parts in Fight Club, and you kind of see it coming by the time it happens. So I'm not really going to ruin it. You'd guess it quite easily.
Is it Muhammad Ali and Frank Bruno?
No.
Oh. Carry on.
I can't remember the two guys' names, but the two main people are actually one and the same person, but the guy's gone a bit schizophrenic. So sometimes he's one guy, sometimes he's another. And when they're in the same room, it's actually them talking to one another. And the reason I like this film is because it had the kind of vibe where if you wanted to find it spiritual and you wanted to find it, I want to say biblical, but it wasn't. It was biblical proportions, epic proportions, but it wasn't strictly done from the scripture. Mm-hmm. But if you're like most Christians and you don't actually know what it says in the Old Testament, you just kind of watch it and be like, check that out. I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
But likewise, if you're a skeptic and an atheist like me and you, we watched it and we could kind of see like this could be like fakery. This could be a guy talking to himself, because one of the things that you laughed at was that one of the men, I can't think of his name, but it's played by Aaron Paul, is he called?
Yes.
The guy that's played by Aaron Paul, he sees Moses a few times speaking to God, and God is portrayed in this film as a young child. Sort of, he just appears as if by magic.
But no one else can see him other than Moses.
Yeah, so no one else can see him. So when Moses is talking to him while he's sat on a rock, it looks like Aaron Paul's checking him out, and he's like, "Why are you talking to a rock, bitch?" That's what it looks like.
I found it really funny because he's like shouting at this rock and pointing it at it and saying, "Why have you chosen me?" And then the next minute he sits on the rock, and I'm like, I was giggling to myself, going, "Totally sat on God's head. This is amazing."
Sat on a child God's knee.
Yeah, and I was just like, I like that. I found that funny, and I imagine that religious people found it awe-inspiring.
Yeah. A select group of religious people would have found it awe-inspiring. Yeah. I couldn't help but notice that all the way through, though. It was very much. There was quite a few areas, like for example, when he finds a burning bush, it's because he goes up the mountain that he's not supposed to go up.
Is that like a fire crotch?
A burning bush. Yeah, it's just thrush, isn't it? Just thrush, burning bush.
We've all been there.
So Moses is tending to the flock, and he's taking some of them up the mountain. He's taking some of the flock up the mountain, and then there's a bit of a storm, and all hell breaks loose, and there's a bit of a landslide kind of thing. Yeah. Good. And then he ends up where he's...
You're ruining the story for everyone, by the way.
Well, I'm not ruining it if you've... Yeah, I am ruining it if you've read the Bible, because it's not the biblical account. But he ends up sort of like... He's stuck amongst the rubble while this bush that's next to him just begins to burn.
Yes.
And that's kind of his interaction with the burning bush. I thought that was a bit... That was strange, because he just had an almighty smack in the face from a rock.
With a rock, yeah.
So there was a hilarious throughway for anyone who was secular. It's like it was inviting both audiences.
Yes,
So it's like look, Moses has been banished, right? Because he killed this guard. He's out in the sticks. He finds himself a wife. Now he's just like a goat herder. Gets slammed in the face by a rock, and then he imagines that he sees a child that tells him of a prophecy.
Yes.
When he makes his way back to Egypt, and the the inevitable plagues happen, he never actually does anything, and sometimes he's waiting for something to happen, and he's shouting at the sky, saying to God, "Come on, God, dude, come on, what the fuck?" And then when God does do something, he's like, "Is that supposed to humble me? Because it will not." He's like, he's quite disobedient.
Yes, he is.
Which, interestingly, I'm told, we were told in the movie that the ancient Hebrew for Israelite. Was it Israelite? Yeah, I think it was Israelite. The translation for Israelite means to struggle with God.
Yes.
And Moses was
Hebrew.
Was it Hebrew? Oh shit! What was it?
I feel like it was Hebrew when he went to see Ben Kingsley.
Yeah. When
he went to see
whatever
Ben Kingsley.
Israelite is in Hebrew translates to struggle with God.
Yeah.
I don't know, but Leslie, it's something like that anyway, isn't it? And I just thought Moses.
Google it.
Google.
Watch the film, don't.
So Moses is struggling with God, and apparently that's the reason why he never actually got to the Promised Land, because God wouldn't let him get there because of his previous disobedience.
Yes.
That's why his natural presence abated or something.
Yeah.
Can't remember the exact scripture. I'm not too sure. But yeah, there was a secular throughway the whole way through. Just follow Moses, and you just go, right, crack on the head, right? He's imagining things. Gets to Egypt, he wants things to happen, and then they don't, and then he doesn't want things to happen, and they do.
Yeah.
He like wakes up in the middle of the night and sees like a shooting star go over the sea, and he thinks, oh, that's my direction, is it God? Mm-hmm. Which could have just been like, especially then when there was no electricity for any kind of light pollution or anything, you would have seen a fair few shooting stars here and there. So it just seemed like, but there's a rational explanation. This could just be a guy who was a schizophrenic skeptic. Yeah,
that's the way it came across. I said to you, Aaron Paul was in it. Aaron Paul is in Breaking Bad, and he was in it. And I said to you, I felt like I needed to be on crystal meth to watch it.
Yes.
That's how I felt when it came out. That's the first thing I said to you on it.
Yeah, I think it
felt like I needed to be on crystal meth to buy it.
It probably would make a little more sense.
I'm not so sure it was as funny as I found it. because I did giggle throughout.
Yeah, no, I did as well. I was impressed. You know, when you said it was quite. You felt like they were mocking it throughout, but it was the best kind of mockery because it was a straightforward, epic story being told, and straight acted.
Yes,
there was no glint in anyone's eye. They were properly acting their way through that.
Yeah.
But yet you could see how these things have been hinged together. They even missed out entire parts. I'll come to that soon when I talk about the biblical version. But they missed out entire parts and the invented parts as well, which is kind of what what people did when they invented parts of the Bible and decided which parts they wanted to keep and which parts they wanted to get rid of. So how some Christians can just turn around and take exception to the fact that it wasn't biblical is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
yes.
You found yourself a little what do you call it?
I did. I was just
a little review.
Cheeky look at some reviews, and Jennifer P. from Australia wrote this. Unfortunately, I went to see the film on my husband's choice. So horribly blasphemous. The burning bush was pathetic, even with computer animation. Then the voice of God, boy urchin, 8-year-old, playing the role of the creator of the universe. I spent at least a third of the movie in the foyer, checked with my husband for the details I missed, saw the Red Sea crossing, wading through at chest height, Moses and Ramesses, whose mummy is in the Cairo Museum, at odds with the Bible account, that the sea closed in on Exodus, Pharaoh and his army, and they all perished. It says Moses' horse dies, deluged by the late arrival of walls of water, which they could generate by CA. Even my husband knows they crossed on dry land from his Lutheran background and the mighty wind God created. Why the mud and crushing currents? It took 5 screenwriters and none of them consulted the wonderful dialogues in the Bible. What else can be expected of Hollywood and its anti-biblical Christian agendas?
Hollywood. I like that.
I like that a lot.
Reminds me of Jay and Silent Bob when someone asks a crackhead a question and he says, "This is Hollywood. You got to be a bit more specific than that." Anyway,
back
Texas. I love that because that, just as we said, that's somebody taking exception to what they saw on screen and the fact that because it didn't match the biblical account.
But not even the biblical account, because again, they probably haven't read the Bible. It just doesn't match with what they have in their mind's eye.
Yeah,
it doesn't match their little cheeky imagination.
because she says that there's the pathetic burning bush. It's like, how does she know what that bush looked like when it was burning?
How does she know how big that bush was
and how hot it was?
She didn't like the bush, let me tell you. She needs more bush in her life. Don't we all? Especially on these cold and rainy days.
Apparently, the impressive thing about the bush in the Bible is that it wasn't consumed, because fire consumes shit. Mm-hmm. Well, because it wasn't consumed, obviously that must be magic. Or Moses got a smash in the face off a big rock. Yeah. But what was she expecting? Did she want fireworks?
She needed a bigger bush, I've just told you that. I'm not saying it again.
Yeah, but she doesn't say that, does she?
Bush.
What was her problem with it?
It's not how she imagined it in her head.
Exactly, yeah. And then that comes straight down to how Christians have their version of the Bible, their version of Christianity, of God, Jesus, the angels.
God's like a white guy with like a long, beautiful white beard.
That's
to say. But it can't be an 8-year-old child. Can't be. Because he's not got a beard, has he? He's not going to have a white beard when he's an 8-year-old child, so that's just wrong.
Yeah, she's like flicking through a Bible and she's like, at no point does it mention that God came down to earth in the form of an 8-year-old boy with a shaved head with an attitude.
Well, I want to see a beard.
And again, how does the 8-year-old know so many big words? Oh, that's right, it's God, right?
Maybe she should watch like Lord of the Rings and just like try and put that into sort of the Bible because there's a guy in it with a big white beard.
I think there could be like an overlap.
I think that'd be good.
And also, like,
Lord of my Ring.
At least we know who wrote Lord of the Rings, don't we? We can actually. I was about to say we can actually consult him. I didn't mean that because we can't because he's dead. But I meant like we could consult like people that would actually know what the guy meant when he wrote it. And even then, you wouldn't get everything. You wouldn't get everything right. That's one of my problems with when people say, "Oh, well, it's written in the Bible, so it's right. It's a historical account," and you're like. like World War II was one of the most documented events in history, and we still can't get the simple facts right about what Hitler were doing behind closed doors. How are we supposed to know about Moses?
I agree. Moses smelled the roses is what I say.
You do say that a lot. I had a little look. I had a little research. I know the general gist of the story, but I thought I'd better have a look at the actual scriptural account so I didn't sound stupid. And I also watched...
Not with that beard.
Pogophile, what's it? Pog on a file?
Yeah.
Pog on a file.
Yeah.
Pog on a file.
Yeah.
Part of my research was to watch 3 of the Bible Reloaded's videos.
Yes, it was.
I think it's episodes 17, 18 and 19, I think it is the story of Moses. So I encourage you to go and watch them. Well, just watch anything that Bible Reloaded does, really, because they're hilarious. And speaking of things that they've done, they were on the previous podcast when we did the Christmas special. So if you want to rewind, check out the one before that.
By the way, boys.
Yeah. So, in those videos, I was listening to Hugo and Jake, and they were mentioning...
Did they say you could call them by the first names?
Yeah, that's the theme tune.
Okay.
With Hugo and Jake!
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
Got it.
You remember the video?
I remember the video.
La, 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 la. Anyway, so, one of the main things was, when Moses goes up the mountain, when he takes the goats up the mountain...
Yeah, I got it.
The first thing is, it says he's tending to his father-in-law's flock. And his father-in-law, it's not a euphemism, his father-in-law's name changes from one chapter to the next, which is either because the Bible is inherently wrong in every way, shape and form, or
I
maybe
won't have it said.
Or maybe it's a different father-in-law because he's taken a few wives, who knows. In the film, there's like this whole sort of like, it's very condensed, but it's a bit of a love thing, isn't it, with him and his wife? They seem to be very much into one another.
Yes.
Into one another.
He does have a magnificent beard, though.
He has a magnificent beard. So if she's a pogonophile just like you...
She must be.
She's into that beard.
She is. I was.
And that beard is into her.
All up
burning bush.
Yeah. Come on now, you said
However,
you wanted this to be quick.
That's what he said. So... Stop interrupting me with my bush jokes.
Stop interrupting me with your bush jokes.
That's a bush joke. Now watch this drive. Bush is a joke, isn't it? And I am talking about
George.
I was just about to say I am talking about George, not Jeb. Jeb's coming.
He is, and I cannot wait.
He's not growing a beard. Right,
no, I mean,
stop. I'm having to edit all this out. Just stop it. Right. So in the Bible, it doesn't mention anything about this love story. It just simply says that because Moses helped the daughters out of this local guy, the local guy sort of, he gets to eat with them, and it just says he gives Moses a wife. There's no love story. It's just like, because people, women were like chattel back then. It's just like, there you go, you now have a wife, done. But for purposes of storytelling, that's a bit rubbish. So he gets a wife while he's taking his father-in-law's flock up the mountain.
Yeah.
That's when he sees the burning bush. Okay, so there's none of the secular sort of storm with a rock hitting him in the head. Yeah. He goes over to the bush. God speaks to him from the bush, and the first thing that he says to him, which I think is pretty weird, is he says, "Dude, take your sandals off. This is holy ground." That's what he says in the Bible. Well, he doesn't say "dude" because that won't be a thing for thousands of years. Yeah. But he says, "Look, this is holy ground. Take your sandals off." So Moses takes his sandals off. That's the first thing that happens. How weird is that?
It's odd.
So God tells him what he's going to do. He's going to go...
8-year-old God or a bearded God?
God from the burning bush.
Okay.
God's busy.
So many gods.
God's busy in the burning bush.
Okay.
The 8-year-old God, he's part of the film, yeah?
Got it.
But the burning bush God,
yeah,
the one that's bothered about the Holy Land surrounding the burning bush, I guess he does.
Is his beard on fire?
I don't think he can see him. I think he's just looking at the burning bush because the Bible also says that you can't see God and live.
So God's just in his head?
God's speaking from the bush.
So there's that crystal meth thing again.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
Hallucinogenic.
So he says, go to Egypt. Moses says, I'm going to summarise this because I don't want to go on too long. I will simply direct you to the Bible Reloaded. I'll throw the links below the YouTube video of this podcast, or in the description in iTunes and Stitcher, where I'm also available.
Go.
So God's all like, Moses, go to Egypt, free the people, yeah? Go and meet with the elders, tell them this is what's happening. And Moses is like, but what if they don't believe me? And he says, I've got a few tricks up my sleeve, check this out. What's that in your hand? And he's like, it's a staff. you know, because like shepherds had those weird little crooked staffs that you see on nativities. Throw it on the ground. Throws it on the ground, turns into a snake. Moses runs away. He says, come back, grab it by the tail. He grabs it by the tail, turns back into a staff. And he's like, yeah, magic trick, all right. Moses says, well, he doesn't say anything actually. I was going to say Moses says that's pretty impressive. He doesn't say that. But he's still bothered about whether or not they will believe him. So he says, check this out. Put your hand inside your cloak. Sounds rude. It's not a euphemism. Puts his hand inside his cloak, pulls his hand back out again, and his hand has leprosy. Then he says, put your hand back inside your cloak, puts it inside his cloak, pulls his hand back out, his hand's back to normal. And he's like, am I right, Moses? Am I right? And then Moses is like, can I still not go? Because he's like wrestling with God. So they got that part right in the Bible. Long story cut short, Moses goes back, and with his is it his brother? I think it's his brother Aaron. Pretty sure it's his brother Aaron. Aaron actually helps him out a lot more. Like in the film, it's all about Moses, but his brother Aaron in the biblical story helps him out a lot. Because Moses actually has a problem going to Egypt and talking to Pharaoh and the Israelites and stuff because he doesn't feel like he's a confident speaker. He's worried about like how he'll come across and stuff, and God's all like, "Don't worry about it, dude. I'll sort you out. I'll teach you how to do it." There's only a couple of times where Moses interacts with the Pharaoh, whereas in the biblical account, Moses talks to Pharaoh pretty much every single time there's one of the plagues, yeah. And again, in the film, it's all a bit sort of suspicious, like it could have been like not God.
Absolutely,
yeah?
It could have just been a natural phenomena.
Yeah, so the Nile suddenly starts turning to blood, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And in the film, Moses looks around and he's like, oh, look at everything turning to blood. That's pretty weird. Whereas in the Bible account, Moses. Either Moses or Aaron, I'm not too sure. One of them is asked to put out the staff across and like touch the Nile, and then the Nile turns to blood, which he creates. He does that in front of the Pharaoh and Pharaoh's magicians.
Yes.
What they don't have in the film, that they do have in the biblical account, is that Pharaoh has some magicians that have their wicked arts, quote. So basically, it turned into some kind of like weird magic off between Moses and the magicians.
Okay.
Like, which is like a cooler story, I think, but it's just weird because what happens is Moses he throws the stick, cane, staff, whatever it's called, throws it on the floor, turns into a snake, and he's like, what up? I've got the power of God, and then the magicians match him. The Nile turns to blood, right? And it does say like the Nile, as in like the whole of it, which is a lot, and Jake and Hugo point that out on the Bible Reloaded.
Yes.
That's a great deal. But it also said in the Bible that all of the water in the area, so like even the stuff that's in like vases and stuff like that, or vases if you're American and you're listening. It's not a real word. So the blood, then the frogs come, the frogs take over the place. Everyone's all like, millions of frogs.
There were.
That seems like a massive infestation, but in the biblical account, it doesn't really tell you how many frogs or whether or not it was an infestation, but it does tell you that the magicians could also match it. I don't really understand how that happens because they just go, yeah, more frogs, ribbit.
It seems a bit of a silly competition, this, if I can be frank with you.
It does. It's like some shit rap battle, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It's like your mama jokes getting out of hand.
Yeah. My mum's jokes or my mama jokes?
My mama jokes about your mum.
Yes, true. The next one, which wasn't really depicted in the film, was gnats, because apparently it goes gnats and then flies. I think they kind of just combine that as one thing in the film, but apparently, what happens? Again, it's either Moses or Aaron. I'm not too sure, but one of them turns the dust into gnats, but the magicians can't do it.
Yeah.
So for some reason they can manifest frogs and turn the Nile to blood.
Yeah, you just can't solve that gnat issue.
But making some tiny flies appear was beyond them.
Yeah.
Darren Brown can do that shit.
Okay.
Then flies, same again. Yeah.
Got it.
Then livestock. So all of the livestock die apart from the Israelites.
That's right.
Livestock. Then next comes boils. So everyone's covered in boils.
They were.
And that happens by Moses throwing some dust up into the air, again with the dust, nobody knows why, dust into the air, in the presence of Pharaoh. And Jake and Hugo thought exactly what I thought when I was watching the YouTube video. They were saying that they wonder if there was a time lapse, because it kind of like, it's written like he throws dust into the air in front of Pharaoh, and then everyone gets boils. But for everyone to get boils, there should have been probably a time lapse.
Yes.
So it seems funny to me that Pharaoh was just like waiting, like, what did they do this time? But Moses just throws dust up in the air like he's being dramatic and walks away, and it takes forever for boils to appear. Next is hail.
Mm-hmm.
That
happens.
That happens.
That happens.
Yeah.
That even happens.
Oh, you mean it just happens in general?
Yeah.
That happens.
It can hailstone.
It can. True story.
That's all I'm saying.
True story.
It can
only hailstone in the summer.
Yeah, you've told me that before. In fact, you told me that when it came out of the film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did, didn't I? Yeah.
You did.
Google it.
No, you've already told me twice.
No, not
now.
you. I mean the listeners.
Oh, right. You were looking at me when you
Next is...
Google it.
Sorry, I'll look at the microphone. Google it.
Thank God we cleared that up.
Google it, listeners. Next comes locusts. There's... Again, that's something that happens. Plagues of locusts. Occasionally, they appear on crops, and
they have
the
a good
crops
old
get
munch.
the crops get decimated. Yeah,
They do. It's
Yeah.
in the news.
yeah, and then they destroy everything. I think it even says the trees as well in the Bible. So they take away everything,
All the fruity goodness.
all the fruity goodness. They munch on all of the bush and the trees.
Yes.
Probably not the burning bush though.
No.
It doesn't say if the burning bush was ever extinguished. Maybe it was burning this whole
It's
time.
Still there.
Maybe there was some.
Anybody check?
Maybe there's some locusts just hitting the burning bush. No, they weren't. Not in this story because this was happening in Egypt and the burning bush isn't there. Then darkness appears. That was
Someone
done.
should check that.
Yeah, quick.
Let's get Bob and check the burning bush.
We're
We shouldn't
worried
drink this
about
much
God.
before we do this. Go on, carry on.
Darkness. So darkness falls, right? And it apparently lasts for like 3 days. That was depicted in the movie, wasn't it?
It was.
It looked very much like Independence Day when the giant.
Did?
Yeah.
I totally thought that.
I thought.
Yes.
Yeah,
A
Independence.
giant
It was very.
cloud.
It was very Independence
Yes,
Day-ish.
it
A
was.
massive shadow just
Well
starts
done.
to. It starts to like envelop all of the pyramids and stuff, doesn't it? All the
did.
sphinxes.
It did. Well done. Very
Yeah.
good. Very good.
Then what happens then? What's the final one?
The final one was where Moses said, "You need to watch your child tonight." So he went into his child's bedroom, and then I can't really. Was it like? It wasn't darkness again, was it? It was just like a bit of a. Was it like a bit of a windy noise, a bit of a howling?
Yeah,
And then it just kind of cut to all the children, who just sort of went, just like took the last. Oi,
yes.
oi, Vee.
I don't know. In the film, I'm not sure about the biblical, the actual, the textual part, but in the film, it seemed like this happened during the darkness, didn't it?
It kind of a bit merged, didn't it?
Yeah, it can. I think
darkness
during the
came,
darkness,
and then he sort of said, "You need to watch your child tonight."
Yeah.
Which I didn't really.
it was. I think it.
He sort of warned him. I wasn't sure about that. He kind of warned him, didn't he? You should be watching your child tonight, but there was no way he was ever going to save him because it just literally each child just took the last breath and that was it.
Yeah.
So I didn't really understand that. But
Well,
that's
yeah,
not relevant.
in the Bible, Moses warns him each time something happens because it's like as if he's hardwired straight upstairs to God.
Yeah,
But like in the film, because Moses is second guessing God at all times,
Yes.
it's like he knows something will go wrong, but
he can't necessarily predict that. That's
yeah. So,
right, okay.
so again, because it's like in the secular view of it, maybe he's just a little crazy, and he's just like you better watch your kids, man.
Yeah.
And then what happens is this darkness falls, and as the darkness kind of like takes over the area, there is like a little bit of a howling, and then the kids gradually like they take the last breath.
Yeah.
But Moses has told the Israelites to do the right thing, which is obviously to slaughter lambs and rub lamb's blood all over the doors, so the angel of death does not come into that area.
Indeed.
So all the kids, I don't know whether all the kids in Egypt or whether all the firstborn. I'm getting mixed up at this point because I've listened to so many.
He said later, when they met on the chariots, and he took his dead baby, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he said not one Hebrew died last night. Do you not remember that?
Yeah, no, I meant I can't remember whether all of the Egyptian kids died, all of the kids, or whether it was just the firstborn children.
No, it didn't.
I think it's just the firstborn because it usually is when it's a biblical thing.
Okay. Everyone else is all right. Just
yeah, because
we'd be all right.
Because that's the point of Moses being where he was because he was there was a thing sent out for all of the firstborn of Egypt to be killed.
That's right.
Because there was a
yes,
prophecy
yes,
that he would free the slaves and stuff. So it's always the firstborn. So I'm guessing just the firstborn died.
Okay.
But yeah, Moses says no Hebrew child died, and then that's the tipping point for the Pharaoh to allow everybody to leave.
He seemed a little angry.
And at first, he does let them leave under duress, but he does let them leave.
He does.
And for somebody who has been on the wrong side of God, because at this point he seems to believe that this God is true. Mm-hmm. For someone who's been on the wrong side of God, and that God has shown him what he can do to the mighty Egypt, it seems a little bit strange that he would then grab all of his chariots and go and chase him down when he knows that God would probably be willing to protect them.
Yeah.
Because he already has. Yeah. Now, when every one of these plagues happens, the Pharaoh's opinion is more or less governed by God, which kind of like the apologetics of the world would say about we have free will. Like when we say, why don't God just show himself? Why doesn't a miracle just happen? Why can't we just see some form of evidence? Apologetics they believe that it will take away our free will. If we knew for a fact God exists, we wouldn't be able to just sort of like figure it out ourselves. We would just have cold hard evidence, and it'd be like, right, so he's real, right, brilliant. But it says in the Bible each time, which again Jake and Hugo point out, each time God hardens Pharaoh's heart, which takes away his free will. Pharaoh, in any other circumstance, might have been willing to let them go after 2 or 3 plagues. It might have saved a lot of firstborn children of Egypt. But God specifically hardens his heart and makes him either reject that the plagues are coming from God, which is weird because he's trying his best to prove himself by sending the plagues in the first place. Mm-hmm. Every one of the biblical stories kind of does this to me. I find it a really fascinating story, but then I realise it's kind of like when you find a paradox in a time travel movie where you just think, well, what's the point then? You should have just gone back 5 minutes earlier. Yeah. It's kind of like that to me. Like
there's a lot of holes in the story.
Yeah. That reminds me of Joe Rogan. If you Google Joe Rogan Noah's Ark, there's a brilliant little stand-up set where he pretends to be like a little kid and he's like, there's a lot of holes in that story, and goes through why Noah's Ark's ridiculous.
There's a lot of holes in this story.
And again, Noah's Ark, that's ridiculous. The whole thing in general, the whole Bible is a bit ridiculous because to me the whole point of it is that God has a fallen angel, and the angel, being Satan, is like, I bet you I can make him not believe in you. And he's like, I bet you can, even though he's apparently supposed to know everything that's ever supposed to happen, past, present and future. So he already knew that Satan was going to betray him. Yep. So why bother?
Why bother with anything these days?
So in this story, whether or not you take the film to be
absolutely
correct, or whether or not you take the biblical account to be correct, bearing in mind that most Christians would be bothered about the film because it seems to embellish a lot and miss out a lot as well. Yeah. Either story makes God a complete arsehole.
Yes.
Even if there was suddenly proof that this God existed, I would still have to tell him where to shove it because I am more moral than that God.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what baffles me about the whole story. It's just like God is interfering by trying to get Moses to do something he doesn't want to do. Yeah. By freeing his people when he could have just had them not enslaved in the first place. Yeah. He could have proved to Pharaoh with a single plague. Yeah. He could have not hardened Pharaoh's heart to make it more difficult for Moses to do his frigging job. Yeah.
He could have given everyone beards.
He's just upset that God appeared as an 8-year-old and could not yet have reached puberty. Yeah.
It felt like there was a hole in the story.
But he's God, he could do anything. He could have arrived as an 8-year-old with a massive white beard.
Like a Mr. Potato Head where you just turn it and it comes like, yes.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
That's a God I can get on board with.
That's a God I can get on top of.
Yes, you're right, I agree.
So, movie review.
Yeah, go and see it. Well worth a watch.
Yeah.
But I just don't believe it happened.
Either or. Huh? The biblical.
I just don't.
Yeah, you don't believe the story. Yeah. Either end of the spectrum.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say go and see it.
Yes.
Good film. Mm-hmm. Good perspective. But look at it just like when they made Troy. Nobody's 100% sure either. Yeah. They're just not. So yeah, I quite liked it. I'd give it, what are you giving it out of 5 stars? How many stars?
3.5.
Oh, I wasn't said that. Yeah, 3.5.
There you go.
Matched.
We're all synced up.
Brilliant.
Marvellous.
Is that our period?
So, everything. Periods, poos.
We spent too long together. We're on the same cycle.
We're on the same menses. Can we go and see Black Annie now?
No. I just said no. You've seen it already. You said you saw it.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to end on a funny little note.
And what was Black Annie like?
I really enjoyed it.
Pretty sure it's just called Annie, though, in the cinema.
Oh. I asked for Black Annie tickets and they gave
Annie.
me them.
Annie 2.0.
Annie.
Back and blacker than ever.
Black to the future.
Ah, yes. Okay, so...
That's a bit racist. Last time we went pornographic, this time we've gone racist.
Yeah. True story. I saw a picture today, and I can't believe I've just realised that I've referenced them about 8 times now. But this was actually on a Jake and Hugo Bible Reloaded YouTube video. The image of the cat with the top hat and the monocle, yes. And it said, "I'm not racist. Some of my best slaves are black."
Which feels a bit like you and me. When I have a nice cheeky tan.
Okay, so this has been the Watchtower and Awakening podcast, episode 11. I guess we'll see you in the future. I'm hoping to get Religious Tourist on for next time.
Yes.
So I'll be having a chat with him whenever he's free.
Has a beard?
I think we can imagine he has a beard, whether or not he's got a beard.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see you for episode 12 with Religious Tourist, hopefully, or it'll be me apologising for not yet having Religious Tourist on.
All right. Either way, I can't wait to listen to it.
Okay. So I've been Mr. Watchtower. Goodbye, fans.
Bonaventure. Goodbye.
Okay, so the God of the Bible's not real, but if he is, may he strike us down.